giving you useful and practical tips to help you make more money selling travel. This is the Art of Selling Travel Podcast, and here to guide you through it all, your host, Glenda Beagle.
Okay. Welcome back. This week on the episode, I am joined by a fabulous guest. I got to meet Jasmine back in October in Pennsylvania. We were at the same conference. Jasmine is with ASTA, and we had some of the most phenomenal conversations that whole week. And I knew right away I had to have her on the podcast because I knew you all needed to hear from her. So welcome, Jasmine.
Thanks so much for having me. And yes, we did have some very wonderful conversations. So I'm excited to bring those to your audience. It's going to be fun.
You know what? I think the one, and this was my, oh yeah, she's going to be on this show. She just doesn't know it yet moment. We were outside at a food truck and she was chatting with somebody who's actually a part of my community and helping them connect with the right ASTA chapter. And then after that person stepped away, she made the comment to me. She's like, I just love to build, find the right pieces of the puzzle and put it together. And I'm like, oh, yes, you are going to be on the show.
Absolutely. So I'm the director of chapter relations at ASTA, and it really is my passion to connect people with people. I think of myself as the ultimate people connector when it comes to ASTA. ASTA is the American Society of Travel Advisors. Our mission is to promote and defend the retail travel agency and advisor community. But the biggest word for me is community. The advisors are truly a community. And when I hear someone say, hey, I'm a new advisor, I don't know where to go, I feel alone, I'm like, oh no, let's find you a community of people to be a part of. Because you know what you can do in your community? You can get information. You can problem solve. You can have a friend to say, hey, I have a difficult client. Something's happening. And you get that person who you can talk to on a regular basis, be it about business or not business. So when we were chatting at that food truck and I was able to talk to that incoming member about some of the communities and ways that they could get involved with ASTA, I was so excited because that means they have a deeper connection with the travel advisor community. And I think that is so important.
Absolutely. You know, I see there's so many Facebook groups out there. There's so many different places you can go. And unfortunately, some of them are like, oh, you're too new, or you don't know this, you don't know that. And it's very exclusatory. But when you were talking about how you just want to bring community together and how you want to give them basically a home where they belong, I love that. And the way that you described it when we were there, like you said, it's like finding all the pieces of the puzzle and putting them in the right puzzle. That was the other part of it too.
Yeah, I think it's important that we are very open in our welcome to people. And ASTA has about 50 chapters throughout the US. So there's a place for an advisor to fit in somewhere. And I think when I talk to advisors and I ask them, hey, what's your interest? And I get to know their personality. Then I start to think about some of our chapter leadership and go, oh, where do they fit? Because the particular person I happen to be talking to at that conference, while they were at Central PA, I knew they would fit in with our New York City Small Business Network chapter. And I'm looking at him and I'm talking to him and I'm thinking, oh, your personality would fit very well here. And I think that's important because it just becomes a place where you feel like home. And that's what I mean by the right puzzle piece. Like if you're a piece of the travel advisor puzzle, but you don't feel like you fit because you're actually an edge, but they're trying to put you in the middle, then you're not going to feel at home. But if we can find you the right place where you can be an edge, then that's going to be a great place for you.
I love it because I think that's the biggest thing is that we all want to feel like we belong. And if I kind of really believe that if we don't feel like we belong, we will struggle to make our clients feel like they belong with us as well. And until we kind of find our own community within the travel industry, sometimes we struggle. I think sometimes that can actually be one of kind of that biggest tipping point for some to really being able to go all in on their business because they feel like, okay, I'm not just a newbie. I'm not just this. But rather I'm a part of something bigger than myself, even as a business owner, even as an agency owner, as an independent contractor, whatever your quote unquote status is, being a part of something bigger than yourself allows you to connect on an entirely different level.
Absolutely. And I think it's that part of being something bigger that people join ASTA. So ASTA is the global advocate for travel advisors, the travel industry, and the traveling public. When people hear ASTA, usually they're thinking about advocacy and they're thinking about the work that we've done on the government level to support travel advisors in the travel profession in general. But one of my best mentors said, people join people, not associations or clubs. And so even though ASTA has this amazing mission and we do this amazing work, if the people do not feel connected to the other people at ASTA, they're less likely to stay. And that's where I feel like I come in. And that's where community is so important. Because while the mission of ASTA is great and it is also something that we should aspire to, it is essential that we have to remember that people are also joining the other people who are part of the association. I like to tell the chapters that ASTA headquarters exists in one place, and that's in Alexandria, Virginia. But ASTA chapters are all over, and that gives you a local connection to the greater mission of ASTA.
I love that. I'm going to touch on something before I come back to just what you just said, but you said people join people. People also buy from people. They don't buy from brands. They don't buy from companies. They don't buy from businesses. They buy from people. They buy the story. They buy the connection that they have. And your biggest edge as a travel advisor in 2024 and beyond is to be the person, not the algorithm, not the bot, not the everything else, but the person that can reassure them, give them that confidence, give them that connection, but also too, through a relationship with an organization like ASTA, it gives a travel advisor a place to get answers when they maybe don't have the answers. Because I know sometimes that holds people back. So that brings me back around to what you were just saying when you were talking about chapters. If somebody's brand new to ASTA, brand new to this world, or like to the ASTA world, if you will, what do you mean by a chapter? What does that look like?
So a chapter is as a new ASTA member, is your local connection to ASTA. It's full of travel advisors who are from your area. So our chapters happen to be geographically based, and they will be able to help you do exactly what you said. Find that information about what's going on in your area. For example, Florida requires a seller of travel number license. And so if you're a new travel advisor, you may not know how to go about getting those things. In your local community, which is your chapter, you'll be able to ask the question, how did you go about getting yours? Where did you get that from? Etc. And it deepens your knowledge because you can say to a client, hey, I don't have the answer for that at the moment, but I have a friend who has been there, or I have a member of my chapter who has done that. Let me talk to them really quickly and see what kind of information you can get. And from there, it just expands all of the knowledge you have, because you now have not only your knowledge and personal experiences, but you have a full community of people that you can lean on for their knowledge and their experiences as well.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that a lot of people overlook when you're trying to build up your authority, when you're trying to get that experience and other such, you know, whether you've been selling it for 10 years, 20 years, or 10 months, there is always, without question, something somebody's going to ask you you've never heard of before. And as somebody who sold travel for nearly 20 years, I assure you, there's still things that surprise me daily as to what clients want to know and things like that. So it's really nice to have a community of people from your area that you can ask those questions. You know, when you're talking about accountants and things like that, the laws are different from state to state. So just to ask you in an open forum, I've been in some where I see Canadians answering Americans and Americans answering Canadians. I'm like, whoa. Those questions are very different answers. And just like you were saying, the sellers of travel certificates that you've got to have in different parts of the country in the US is different from state to state, and the requirements and the rules around service fees and all of these different sorts of things are very regional. So having a
Mhm.
group like an ASTA chapter where it's regionally based can be a huge help.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that maybe gets missed from time to time is the relationship with supplier partners too.
Mm.
Also like your local BDMs. So oftentimes in I see new travel advisors come into the industry. They don't know who their local BDMs are outside of the few brands they may have heard of or worked with personally. One of the best things about going to ASTA chapter events and associating with your ASTA chapter is your ASTA chapter is going to invite your local BDMs from products that you honestly may not have heard of yet, but maybe you have clients who you can qualify for those products. And so it just brings in not only the travel advisor community, but also your travel supplier community as well. So you can make those BDMs and start to make those deeper connections. And everything that we do in this industry is about connecting. It's about who you know and relationships. And so if you meet a BDM at a chapter event, and then you need to call that same BDM because maybe your client wants something a little different and relates to their product, they'll know who you are. They will have met you. They will have shook your hand at an event. And that goes a long way versus just kind of cold calling someone that you haven't had a chance to meet yet because you haven't seen them maybe at a local event.
Absolutely. Now, for anybody who's newer and doesn't know what a BDM stands for, that's a business development manager. You might also hear them refer to as like a supplier representative, like a supplier rep, things like that. There's a bunch of different names. But absolutely, I will say my entire business success was leveraged on my relationships that I had with suppliers. When you want to apply for a FAM, a lot of times those local business development managers get a little bit of a say in terms of who gets to go. So building a
Absolutely.
relationship with them is also going to determine your eligibility to a degree to attend some of these. Obviously, sales and things like that are going to factor in. There's a whole bunch of things. But the better your relationship is, the better likelihood of being selected, especially on those ones that are a little bit harder to get, the ones that are, a little bit more aspirational. You want to have that relationship in place so that they understand, one, that you have an intention to sell their product, but two, they can also see what you've been doing. And if you want to maybe do your own consumer event or something like that, where you're involving your local rep or your local BDM, you want to have that relationship so that you're not cold calling them and being like, hey, you don't know who I am. You've never heard of this event I'm doing, but I totally want you to come hang out. You've got to put in that same amount of time to get to know them, because I do believe a lot of our business development managers are some of our best assets to have, because we all want to think travel will never have a delayed flight. We'll never have a canceled anything. We'll never have anything come up in the world ever. We all live in the real world. So knowing who you can call when your back's up against the wall is phenomenal. And when your back's up against the wall is not the time you want to make your first impression or your first connection with your sales rep. You want to have something already in place so that when you call them and you're like, OMG, I need help, they're like, for sure, I got your back. As opposed to, I'm sorry, who are you?
Absolutely. And one thing I will add to that, I call myself travel adjacent because I've never sold travel a day in my life. However, I've worked for ASTA for the past decade. I started in 2013. And some of my BDM friends who started with me in 2013 no longer work for the same company. They've moved around quite a bit. And so the BDM that you meet today may not be working for the same company that they were working for or that they worked for, later on. And I say that to say that maybe they're not selling a product that you are particularly interested in now, but you can still build a relationship with them because in 5-10 years, they may be selling a different product that you are highly interested in. The relationship stays. The jobs may change, but the relationships stay. And that's why I think it's very important to get involved with your local chapter and start building those relationships, even with BDMs who might not be selling the product that you like right now, because there is a lot of movement in this industry. It's a great industry and people tend to stay, but we move around a lot.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. I want you to let's just take a moment. You own a business. You own a business where maybe you own a coffee shop and you want that staffed with the best customer service people. Well, you're going to have a look at some of the other places. And when you're out shopping on your own and you encounter somebody with phenomenal service, oh yeah, you're going to have your eye on them. And if you start to hear anything about this person's looking for a second job or looking to make a move or something, you're going to go and you're going to swipe them. Same thing kind of happens in travel, not officially, but unofficially. They're like, hey, if ever you're looking, you come hang out with us. And then we have things like 2020, where I swear not one rep that I knew in 2019 is still with the same company in 2023. So many of them switched out. A lot of them have gone back to their previous ones, but there was such a shuffle that took place then. And what you were saying too, that really struck me. I have some supplier reps over the years that I've built phenomenal relationships. I've been open in the fact that I'm like, you know what? Your product's not one I'm ever going to sell. But I have personally, as an agency owner, when I've sat at a national level and talking with VPs and presidents of companies, and they're like, hey, who do you like for reps? That's another thing. They do come to the owners out there. And I will be like, hey, if you're looking for somebody, you want to talk to this person because I want to sell your product and I want to work with them. And so there is a shuffle that takes place. So build the relationship with the person as well as the brand, because
Absolutely.
that we are in an entire industry built entirely on relationships.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Relationships are essential. When I travel to consumer facing shows and I speak with new travel advisors, the first thing I tell them is start building your relationships, because these relationships are going to be essential. Build them with your BDMs, build them with your local travel advisors, with travel advisors who have more travel advisor experience than you, because these relationships are going to be able to help you answer those questions and to deepen your knowledge in the industry. There is nothing that I would honestly put above that, is the relationships that you have the opportunity to build, and build as many of them as you can and build them as deeply as you can.
I was just going to say, it's not about going a mile wide and an inch deep. It's about going a mile deep and an inch wide. Those relationships, 100%, could not agree more. Now, when I was at that conference, of course, being from Canada, I'm like, okay, well, what does ASTA do? You always hear join it, because there is so much conversation about advocacy. Now, to play the devil's advocate, and whether you're American, it's ASTA. If you're Canadian, it's ACTA. If you're in other parts of the world, you're going to have your own associations. So please check them out. But we hear about advocacy all the time. I'm an independent contractor. I'm in my first year or two of business. Does that really affect me? Like, why would I want to have an ASTA membership?
Absolutely. So focusing on advocacy, because I think there are some things that get lost. So just a couple of facts and figures for you. One, over the last decade, ASTA's efforts have led to legislative and regulatory wins that saved the travel advisor industry an estimated $720 million in new taxes, fees, and other costs. Like, that's just a lot of money. The advocacy work that we do is going to be, of course, on the national level. You hear about that all the time, but also at the state level as well. We helped to save Kentucky travel advisors. It was an estimated $2,500 because of a law that we helped to fight. And what one state does, other states try to do. In particular with ASTA, we give you the opportunity through our legislative day to actually go talk to your representatives and tell them what is important to you and your business. And so when it comes to advocacy, we do some things with you, we do some things for you, and we ask you to do some things with us, including our letter writing campaigns and our different grassroots campaigns. And this is really an opportunity for you to exercise your voice in the industry. A lot of people join ASTA because they are passionate about being a travel advisor and they want the travel advisor industry to remain viable. And when it comes to certain taxes, especially taxes, the government likes to look at travel related items and say, hey, we could tax that a little bit more. And that's where ASTA comes in and say, hey, no, don't do that, because you're affecting people in a way that is going to affect their livelihood. And so we want you to exercise that with us. We have direct lobbying, we have grassroots lobbying, and of course we have our political engagement through our ASTA PAC, and that represents our three-legged stool of advocacy. And you get to be a part of that in each part of that three-legged stool.
So I'm just going to, because you said something which triggered me a thought, and I'm like, wait, what? So I know here in Canada, they're implementing luxury taxes on automobile, like cars and stuff of a certain dollar figure. And I may or may not have binged Selling Sunset on the weekend as I took a down day, and they were talking about California's new mansion tax. You know, that would be somewhere where ASTA would look at, because who's to say they're not going to start putting luxury taxes on vacations? Like, that could potentially be something that somebody's like, hey, if people are going to spend this much on a vacation, then we might, like, so, you know, it might have more impact than you realize, because where's the line? Just because one person's paying it, even though they're taking their multi-gen family, or this is their once in a lifetime, like, there's a pot, like, I've sold all levels of travel, and I will tell you, some of the people who spend the most are the ones that are probably the most surprising. But at the same time, too, there is something that could happen with that. So having somebody like ASTA being here and being able to go and do that on your behalf. The other thing I wrote down, so if you're newer, what if you don't feel like you can contribute much? Like, should you still consider legislative day? Like, if you don't know what that looks like and other such, is that actually a place for you to be a part of?
Absolutely. So legislative day is what I like to call one of the most powerful things a travel advisor can do, especially as a member of ASTA. And the reason why is because we provide you the training on the issues.
Nice.
And we take the time to provide you with that training. So if you've never been up to Capitol Hill and have no idea what you're doing, please do not worry, because we will help you. We send either a very experienced member with you, or as a member of staff. I've been going to legislative days for the past few years, and we train you on the issues that we're presenting. So we come with as a united front, and then we ask you to just tell your story and how this is going to affect you. So in Legislative Day 2020, which sounds really, really far away now, we were actually talking about Real ID. And I happened to go with the states of Arizona and New Mexico. And we were talking to their representatives about how those states weren't going to issue Real IDs, or it was very, very difficult for you to get one, and how it was affecting their travelers, that this Real ID deadline was coming up, because it was so hard to get one that these people who already had global entry or TSA pre-check or what have you, it's like, why can't they use other things to get past that one part? And the legislators and their representatives, they were very open to hearing us. Now that issue seems very, very far away, but that's just an example of the types of things that we can take to Capitol Hill. And it was less about the actual numbers and facts and figures, and more about the travel advisors in that room telling their story. Like, say, hey, I have clients, intergenerational travelers, we're getting ready to go, and grandma has just a non-driver's ID. Does she need a real ID on that? How do we get her one when the process itself is taking months and months and months? And they can relate to those stories more so than anything else. So I would say, if you are new, don't be afraid. We'll train you. But also, they want to hear from you as a constituent, and they want to hear from you about your story, which you know very well.
Wow. And that kind of brings us back to that human factor. They want the story of the people. They don't necessarily, it's not all strictly facts and figures and statistics and forecasting. It's how is it affecting the actual people? and the way that that's causing them to not be able to do what they want to do, to, kind of ruin things when grandma wants to go on this trip and whatnot. So I absolutely love it. So in addition to advocacy, because that is the one that we hear a lot about. So first off, even if you're brand new, dive in. There's something in there for you. I heard if you don't want to be taxed through the nose, you want to pay attention to what ASTA is helping out with and things like that, because we can really, there's a lot of things that happen in governments, no matter what part of the world you're in, that they talk endlessly. And it's like, I have no idea. And there's a lot of times where, as the people, we're like, it doesn't affect me. Then you get your tax bill at the end of the year and you're like, wait, what the heck happened? And suddenly it affected you. So
absolutely,
I love that ASTA is proactively saying, hey, this is a possibility. This could cost you another $2,500 a year. In 4 years, that's $10,000. Well, that sounds like you could have done something pretty fabulous for your family.
absolutely,
That's a lot of money in your own home going out every year that ASTA is helping to make sure that you get to hold on to. Now,
absolutely.
When we were in Pennsylvania, you guys were talking about the things beyond Advocacy Day and beyond the advocacy that you do. And there was a portal that you talked about that you said almost nobody looks at, but that they need to, and things like that. And she was like, I'm going to throw down now. Like, you're all.
Yes. Cause I used to give I used to give a presentation on the hidden membership benefits of ASTA, because we have our member advantage program, which is probably one of my favorite suite of ASTA benefits that I feel like gets the least amount of attention. But it's my absolute favorite, because this is where ASTA has said, okay, we realize that you all are business men and women. And so we want to make sure you are saving on things that help your business. Everything from Office Depot to attorneys who can review your contracts, to batteries and bulbs and computers. We just have a suite of benefits that is really going to help your business. So our participating vendors pledge to offer ASTA members pricing that is low or lower than what's available in the marketplace. It is one of my absolute favorite benefits. I got my own personal computer from HP through this program. And I think sometimes when people look at ASTA membership and they look at the cost, they go, what is it going to save me? Or how do I balance this out? And I will tell you, I saved a lot on my computer, and you can save a lot just by having a lawyer look at your contracts. Like, they will give you a complimentary 15-minute initial consultation and then 15% off of the attorney's regular fees. So you quantify that in comparison to the price of membership. I absolutely love our suite when it comes to the Member Advantage program. Absolutely.
Is she like the smile she has? I wish you guys could all see it right now, but she's like, no, like this is it. But, I think we've given a lot of conversation to it as a whole. So in addition to the advocacy, in addition to the member benefits, I personally think the true gold is in the local chapters. It's in that local connection, because for a lot of travel advisors, it can be hard to get out and meet your local business development manager. This is a really good way to get to meet them, to build that relationship. This is a really good way to really build a connection with other advisors in your area. Have those conversations. Something I see in my community all the time is, I live in this area, I can't charge fees. And I'm like, but I know somebody else in your area and they are. So that's a you problem, and things like that. And so it's a way to be able to talk with colleagues. For years, I ran an office where I had a team of people who worked in the office. We called them inside sales. And then we had a team of independent contractors. We called them outside sales. And one day it occurred to me, as we were having a conversation, because it was a slow news week. So of course, gun violence in Cancun became the conversation that the news decided to run with. And so we were sitting at my desk and I was chatting with my inside team, talking through it, answering questions, working through what does that look like when the clients come in and they're stressed out. And then it hit me, those independent contractors I have weren't a part of that conversation. They didn't get to have that same connection. So we did start, then we would go live. And that was part of, in my own Facebook group now, the Sticky Sales Scenarios for Travel Advisors. You want to be in there because I go live every week and we talk through certain things that I'm hearing travel advisors talk about. And we go live so we can answer your questions right then and there. And that is part of that community aspect. So with something like ASTA, check out their local chapters. Find one that's going to have things. I know I've seen, whether it's groups or things like that, they'll do trade shows. Central PA, shout out to them. They put on a symposium. Actually, I'm going to link it up in the show notes so that if you are anywhere within that region, go check it out. It'll be in September of 2024. Tracy and her team do a phenomenal job of putting on that event. And there were not near enough travel advisors showing up for it. So you now have a big lead into that one. Put that one on the books and make sure that you attend that one. But also too, in addition to everything else ASTA does, ASTA also puts on a handful of events. Let's just talk real quick about some of the most popular or the most you should be there events that ASTA does.
Absolutely. So I'm going to give you some events that you should sign up for 2025 because 2024 is sold out. But I just want to go ahead and give you those two. So ASTA's River Cruise Expo this year, it's going to be in Amsterdam. One of our late great vice presidents, Bob Douglin, came up with this idea to have all of the river cruises, or as much as we could get, in the same place at the same time, so you could learn about them and look at their product. And so that's happening in March. We have our ASTA Travel Advisor Conference. That is formally known as the ASTA Global Convention from May 29th through the 31st, 2024. And Vanessa Williams is our keynote. We've completely redone this education to include a lot more education and some more things that are just going to help you deepen your business relationships as well as increase your business IQ. So that I'm really excited about. Of course, we have our Travel Masters, which is our golfing event in Maui in Hawaii. Our Caribbean Showcase, which for 2024 is sold out, and that is going to be in Curacao this year. Legislative Day, which I talked about earlier, that is happening in Washington, D.C., September 17th through the 18th, 2024. So when that comes out, please sign up. And then, of course, we have our Premium Business Summit, October 16th through the 20th. And that this year, it is occurring on the Virgin Voyages Valiant Lady. So we will be on the water. If you have any questions at all about what ASTA's got going on as far as events, you can go to our website. And under professional development, there is events and there is our national events. And also, if you scroll down a little bit, there is a calendar of national events and local chapter events. That way you can see the calendar of everything that ASTA has going on. And hopefully I'll see you at one or two events.
That is fantastic. One thing that I have heard from some people, and so I'm just going to put this out there, is that, well, there's no event in my area. It's like an hour or two away. Congratulations, get in the car and go. Where I live, it was a minimum of an hour to anything. And that was some of the biggest game changers in my business. I would drive 3 hours to attend certain events. Yes, I ended up getting a hotel depending on the time. I would fly to certain events. There's all different sorts of things. Know what it is that you want to get out of your business and know what it is you're willing to do. To stay home and just complain that there's nothing in your area is not going to increase the likelihood of something happening in your area. Getting out, showing up and saying, hey, you should come do this here. And they're like, oh, well, we've never had anybody from there, so we would love to come and check it out. That becomes the game changer. I remember for years, I would drive to go attend different events in different cities and things like that. I built a relationship with one of the guided vacation companies. And then I said to them, you're missing the mark. You need to be in our town. And they said, okay, let's put you on the calendar. And then they started doing their consumer event that they put on, that they funded in our town, in our city. And lo and behold, it became one of their most successful, that they repeated it year after year after year. And because we built that relationship with them, we got to get a whole lot of the promoing involved in it. And it was a lot of our clients and a lot of our potential clients that were there. And we definitely closed sales as a result of it. It was because I built the relationship. It's because I showed up at other places. And it's because I asked for it with a plan of action associated with it. I love that ASTA is all about building community, building connection, not just with other travel advisors, but also with your business development managers. There has been so much gold in this episode that I think that there's something in there for everybody to action out. If you're not already a part of a local community, be it ASTA or something else, I can't encourage you strongly enough to go out and find your travel advisor community locally. Thank you so much, Jasmine, for being on the show. This has been such a treat to have you. And I look forward to seeing ASTA just explode over the next year.
Thanks so much for having me and letting me just talk a little bit about my passion, which is truly communities and the community of travel advisors that I've had the pleasure of being a part of. And I hope to see many of you at an event soon.
Real quick, just because I forgot, if somebody signs up with ASTA, what's the first thing they should do?
Go to the calendar and find your chapter event. And if you're not sure what chapter is your chapter, if you go to chapters, we can, if you go to the map of the chapters, it'll show you where your chapters are located. So I would say find your chapter is the first thing you need to do.
Awesome. Awesome. Perfect. There you go. Join ASTA, find your chapter, and then let it go from there. Have a good day, guys. And until next week, happy selling.